Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Money Talk podcast. In this weekly show, we give you the real talk about money. We eliminate the fine print, we junk the jargon, and we explain how you can make smarter financial decisions. We're not millionaires, we're thousandaires, and we know you are too. So this show is for you. We want to talk about money because it affects everyone, rich and poor, and so money shouldn't only be the occupation of the 1%, but rather the 99%. Got a topic for us? Submit it on our website, realmoneytalk.ca. And if you like the show, don't forget to like and subscribe. The more you like and subscribe, the more shows we can make, funded off the backs of our sponsors. We are joined here today in studio with Barry Choi, personal finance expert and founder of MoneyWeHave.com.
Depending on where I'm going, it's more for travel. Like certain credit cards I just have because of the sign-up bonus, or there's certain situations where they make sense. So if I'm traveling, I swap my credit cards out. Like being honest, I'll have my No Forex card, I'll have my Platinum card for the lounge access, and then have my Marriott Bonvoy card because that earns me more points when I'm actually at the hotel. So a minimum of 3. But right away, 2 of them are Amex cards, one's a Visa, and then even the No Forex card sometimes is questionable, so you gotta have a backup card. And then when I'm home, like you're saying, it's like I shop at Loblaws and No Frills, so I always have my PC MasterCard here. But at the same time, there's so many other places, like, you know, if you go to Costco, they only take MasterCard. So if you've got an Amex or Visa, you got to keep that in mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Real Money Talk podcast, where we give you the real talk on all things personal finance. I'm your host, Justin DeRosa, managing editor at Ratehub.ca. I'm joined by my colleagues and personal finance writers, Tyler Wade and Hyder Owanati. Thanks for joining us, Barry.
Yeah, anytime.
Appreciate it. So just to get us started, tell us a little bit about how you became a personal finance and travel expert.
Yeah, you know, I guess it was, I quickly realized no one's going to care more about my money than myself. I used to use a financial advisor at one of those investment firms. And, you know, you think they're working with you because you just don't know any better. And then when you start to educate yourself a little bit, you realize that they're actually charging some pretty high fees, and their motives may not be aligned with your goals. Unfortunately, the reality is a lot of them are looking to see what makes them money. And I basically caught them. I was like saying, hey, this isn't in my best interest. Why are we doing this? And they didn't have a good answer.
Wow. For sure. And I know for myself, when I started to educate myself about personal finance, you sort of develop more interest as you go. And then definitely saving money is a huge part of that too. Yeah,
you know, I think that whole education thing is a big factor. When you really start learning about it, you realize like it's actually not that difficult, right? Like I'm not talking about jumping right into investing, but just understanding the basic concepts of personal finance, saving money, what you need for retirement, and just making small changes to your budget to reflect that. And once you get there, then you quickly realize like, oh, investing is actually not that hard, especially now. There's so many different services where the fees are significantly lower, where you actually don't need to put any effort into it. Like I'm referring to robo-advisors. Like that wasn't around 10 years ago when I started, so I really had to learn. But now anyone can just jump in and not pay high fees. At the same time, I encourage them to learn, but they do have more options.
Yeah. And I know, aside from the personal finance, you're kind of like us in that you're a bit of a credit card nerd. So there are obviously several types of credit card reward programs in Canada, like travel rewards, cashback rewards, store credit cards. So what's in your wallet right now?
Oh, you're going to need like 3 episodes to talk about what's in my wallet. You know, there's 2 go-to cards that I have. PC Financial World Elite MasterCard, just because I happen to shop a lot at Shoppers Drug Mart and No Frills. I think people don't realize how good the PC Optimum program really is, especially when you're signed up, the targeted offers. And on top of that, a lot of people don't realize like PC Insiders, which is a pay for service, you get even more points. Your earning potential is insane. And this is a no-fee card. To me, that's a no-brainer if you happen to shop at those stores. Right now is American Express Platinum for the travel benefits, which I love. You know, lounge access, hotel status, but more importantly, the flexibility of the points. A lot of people don't realize that you can transfer points to Aeroplan, to Marriott Bonvoy. On top of that, you have the fixed mileage program. So there's so many different options. So just knowing what your points are worth can go a long way.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that, trying to figure out which points, how they work, how they're calculated. But what's in your wallet right now, Tyler?
So I get ripped on fairly regularly for it, but I haven't made a switch yet. So I'm still have the RBC Avion.
It can be good. Depends on your needs, yeah.
Yeah, so, and it's one of the questions actually that has come up recently the more that I try and learn about credit cards, because I sort of looked at my wife the other day and I said, you know, we have this RBC Avion card, which I've been told is not very good on the travel points side, and we only use it like every other year, it seems, to actually redeem the points for sort of more international travel, less local travel. Is it worth it to have this card, or would we be better off with a cashback card? And because I said, we don't usually use things like lounge access or other, and her quick response was, we've used it twice for trip cancellations and gotten all our money back.
So generally speaking, most of the higher end travel credit cards from banks are pretty good depending on your needs. Like RBC Avion, the one thing I like about it right away is you can transfer your points to WestJet. So that's one nice thing, but at the same time you could argue, well, why am I not just using the RBC WestJet World Elite card instead?
But that limits me to just flying WestJet.
Yeah.
Right?
So again, the assumption is if you fly WestJet, then you want to do that.
Yeah.
But it kind of acts like a cashback card when you think about it, because the maximum value is I think it's 100 points for $1. So it's it is technically quote unquote cashback. It's just best used for travel, because obviously you can use your points for other things like RSP contributions, but you still get maximum value with playing catch up to a lot of the other cards. Like Scotiabank released a card, they added lounge access, CIBC added it, so I think RBC is just we gotta get on that too. So mind, there's other things too, there's a fee, but if you and your wife bank with RBC and you're getting that annual fee waived,
the annual fee's waived,
then that alone might be worthwhile. That being said, if you and your wife spend a lot on your credit cards every single month, it might be worth looking at other cards strictly for the sign-up bonus and seeing what benefits you. There's so many different options out there.
So how often do you change cards?
Yeah, you're forgetting about Hyder.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around.
Or me.
I'm interested in what's Barry's wallet, to be honest.
Well, it's not that I change cards a lot. It's just I like good offers.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of good offers right now in Canada. The competition is insane for credit cards. But like you said, I think it's important to look at additional benefits. Just paying for the travel insurance loan, that alone's worth it. Right? Think about how much you got back just by having that card right away.
That's huge, yeah.
That's 100% worth it. And sometimes you got to read the fine print and exactly am I covered for 15 days, 28 days, 10 days, whatever. So you really got to know. So to me, it's not about changing cards, just seeing what's a good offer out there and knowing how it affects your credit by applying for too many credit cards or whatever.
Yeah, this year I signed up for the BMO World Elite.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year, they were offering a sign-up bonus of $35,000.
Exactly.
So I got that, and then I used the lounge passes last time I traveled, so it essentially paid for itself this year, but the fee was waived, so I think of that as paying it for itself next year when the fee does kick in. So.
Totally, right? Yeah. And then you get those lounge passes back. Hyder, what do you...
I'm juggling between two cards. I've got the Tangerine card. I use it for groceries and restaurants, and I get 2% on Ubers, which is pretty good for a no-fee card. And then I have the TD First Class, and I have that just because I get the annual fee waived.
Yeah.
And it's got a pretty good return on flying, so I use it for all my other purchases. If I buy clothes or cat food, I use that card.
Yeah.
But I think what you were talking about sign-up bonuses, there's a lot to unpack. The idea of applying for a lot of cards. People are scared of applying for cards. They always think there's an automatic negative impact on your credit score. The idea of cashback versus travel, the fact that not enough people just use one credit card for all their purchases, when strategically if you carry two, you can walk away with twice as much rewards and not necessarily pay as much in fees. So there's a lot to unpack in terms of credit cards and how people use them.
For sure. We have a lot of discussions around here about travel versus cashback rewards. It's you're firmly in one camp or the other. I bet you're probably saying both have to have their benefits.
They totally do. I get why people like cashback, especially in the recent years. There's some more blackout dates with certain programs. It's difficult to get flights. The good programs where you can claim anything, it's basically a cashback program, but then you can only use it for travel. So why don't you just take the cashback instead? You can also look at cashback cards and be well, some of these cards only pay out once a year. Some cards pay out monthly. Those are the cards I typically prefer, but a lot of the benefits are similar. I typically lean towards travel credit cards just because I like to travel. If you're someone who doesn't like to travel, why would you have a travel credit card? It makes no sense, right?
So speaking of travel rewards, they can be very confusing from the various rewards programs, point calculations, as we mentioned. It can be sort of intimidating for someone who's just thinking of getting their first travel reward card. What advice would you give to someone interested in starting to collect travel rewards?
Well, there's so many resources out there. Even the Ratehub website has every single, I think, rewards program just kind of listed out. But you got to kind of think about what type of travel you like and what type of rewards you like. We were talking about earlier, well, if I don't fly WestJet, why would I want WestJet dollars? Of course, that makes sense. But if you do fly WestJet at least once a year, maybe you get their credit card, maybe you collect their dollars. And then just understanding the different programs and your full value. A lot of people just take the base value. But when you start thinking about transfer partners, then you can really start to get really good value.
Okay, so that's actually a question. So with the TD rewards travel cards, you have to use, is it Expedia for TD or TD for Expedia?
Yeah, so some people complain about that because you're not technically forced to use Expedia for TD, but you get maximum value.
Okay.
So you get 3 times the points, which actually ends up being a 4.5% return. So you could argue that that's one of the better credit card travel programs because Expedia literally does have everything, right? And it's almost the same price if you were to book it separately. So you could make the argument that you get a better value on your return. You may not be earning as many points on your regular day-to-day spending, but you might come out ahead when you're making a redemption, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on, because a lot of people don't like the idea of getting stuck with like flying with one airline. So I know that Amex is their points system is pretty flexible. So is Scotia. Like what are the most like for people who want flexibility in terms of flying on any airline that they want? What would you say is the best?
Well, all the programs would pretty much let you book on any airline these days. The only exception is obviously if you've got an Aeroplan credit card or you're collecting WestJet dollars through the WestJet RBC card, you're stuck with those airlines. But it's also value, right? We're talking about Amex. You can transfer to Aeroplan 1-to-1. I like Amex membership rewards, just because it's worth how to get maximum value, right? Same thing. They also transfer to Marriott Bonvoy, but I can also book any fixed travel. I do the math and be like, okay, if I transfer it to Bonvoy, this is how many points it's going to cost me. But if I book it on regular membership rewards, this is how much it's going to cost me. So to me, like Justin was saying earlier, like a lot of people don't want to do this math, and I totally understand it. But once but once you get it, you realize like the value is really it can change quite a bit, and it's also understanding the different programs.
For sure, yeah. I personally like the flexibility of the Scotia Amex Gold.
Yeah.
I was able to book 2 flights on. It was just happened to be WestJet, and then you just transfer the points over to pay off your bill.
Yeah,
it's a really easy way to do it.
The way I look at it is like some of the programs are a little bit better in the sense, like you said, if you can book it anywhere and just claim your points after. Some programs require you to go through the travel portal, which is a bit annoying.
Yeah.
But it is what it is sometimes.
Yeah, I played around with the BMO website to see about claiming my points there, and it is definitely more confusing than through the Scotia portal.
Yeah, and even the BMO, the weird thing is you can actually call in and have them book whatever because they're a full service agency, but it's like, you might as well just call in if the portal's being annoying. It's like, book me this. Like, you can find it somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
First.
Do you personally have a particularly memorable trip that you used booking points?
Yeah, just last year, my wife was on maternity leave. My daughter was like about 10 months, 8 days at the Marriott in Amsterdam, all on points. Right. If we were to pay cash rate, I think it was 350 euros a night. So we're talking about 500 plus Canadian. So
that you didn't have to pay.
That's correct.
Wow.
Or even something more recent, which I didn't take advantage of. My parents did. I booked them premium economy / business. They went to Hong Kong and Singapore. They spent 2 weeks in Asia, and all of their hotels were on points. So they paid.
So you become their travel advisor as well.
Yeah, you could say that, and it's just one of those situations where it's just figuring out what points I have, where can I maximize the value, right? So if we were to pay cash for that, flights alone would have been, including the business class, $7,000-8,000 a person, and then the hotels, 2 weeks, $200, $3,000 to $4,000 easily. So we're talking about like $11,000 in travel, and I paid maybe $200 in taxes total.
So we're talking about like these ultra hacks and flying to like Europe and Dubai and just on a dime. But for like most people who are just trying to find their credit card or the right one to use, like I've experienced this with my friends, they just don't know the basics. For example, they're not willing to compare credit cards across banks because they have a checking account and they want to stick with the same bank because they think it's easier, but in reality they're kind of restricting themselves. Or the idea of not redeeming your points for gift cards because you'll actually get less value out of your points, and sticking. So like, what are, for like down to the basics, like what would you advise someone who's looking for a good travel credit card?
Well, for me, it's just like the sign-up bonus is the number one thing, obviously, just because right away you can get a minimum of $250 value. If the card's annual fee is waived for the first year, that's another 120-ish. So right away you're getting close to like $400 in value. But to me, it's got to be your spending patterns too, right? If you're spending a certain amount of money on, say, restaurants or gas, you want to look for a card that earns you more points, right? The higher multipliers. There are some basic cards that earns you a straight rate, and those are fine too. But if you really understand your own spending patterns first, that's a good start. And a lot of people don't realize, like you were saying, is like you can sign up for a credit card with a different bank. You don't have to bank with them. Most people just don't understand that. They're like, well, then how do I pay my bill? It's like, well, it's just like another bill payment, right? Like,
Exactly. Get
yeah,
the app.
yeah,
Make a
but
bank
people
account,
just
send some money.
don't know it, and I don't necessarily expect them to. And it's true. We talked about this. It can be difficult to sign up for a different credit card and then change all your stuff over. You don't necessarily need to do that. You don't need to cancel your old cards. You can have multiple cards. I've got like probably 14 credit cards right now. Yeah, people think that's nuts, and like you were talking about, like how it affects your credit score. Yeah, I take a hit every single time I apply for a credit card, right? But more importantly, we haven't really focused on this part, is as long as you're paying your credit cards in full every single month, your credit score will go back up, right? Like, yeah, you got access to more credit. I wouldn't recommend applying for 10 credit cards and then a mortgage in the same month. But if you know what you're doing, you spread out the applications and you're doing it for a reason. Again, more importantly, you're always paying your bills in full and on time. Right. There's nothing wrong with taking advantage of things. It's just, once people start to travel and then they're putting on credit with no idea how to pay it off and they think they just deserve a vacation, that's where I start to worry more about anything else.
Yeah, the simple thing that I do with my credit card to maximize the rewards I can get is I treat it like a debit card, but I pay it off in full every month, and I never pay interest. It does take some discipline for sure, but if you have that discipline, you definitely reap the rewards of the rewards. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know you travel a lot. In your opinion, what is one of the best bang for your buck travel destinations?
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you look at it. If we're talking from a straight value perspective, Southeast Asia, because you can easily get by for less than $75 Canadian a day. Like, you can live comfortably, right? And that's not even with points. A lot of people will say, oh, it's going to cost me $1,400 fly there. But I'm like, yeah, but you could spend more on a meal in Canada compared to your entire ground cost for an entire day. So you got to look at your overall budget. There's always budget destinations. Like, even in Europe, Portugal is typically cheap. But from a value perspective, depending on the plan, it just depends on how much tickets cost, right? Generally speaking, a flight to Asia is high value if you're using points, because there's typically not many taxes in the airports. There's a lot of laws, right? Whereas if you fly to, say, like, I'll put it in real numbers. Like, I believe it's 60,000 points to fly Aeroplan to Europe, but the taxes are insane. I've seen taxes to France for $800, whereas like I could literally just pay cash and not use my points to fly to Europe. But if you were to fly to Asia, it's like anywhere from 75,000 to 90,000 points. So it's not that many more points. The price of an actual ticket is usually double, but your taxes are usually less than $200. So there's a lot of value. And more importantly, sometimes if you take a stopover anywhere, think about the different airlines. Turkish, you can stop in Istanbul, Eva Air, Taipei, Emirates, and Dubai. A lot of these airlines just let you stop for free. So it depends on what your definition of value is.
And you can save money by booking at different times. What do you think is the best time to book to save some cash on travel?
The funny thing about travel is people always think last minute travel is the cheapest way, and it's actually usually the most expensive way to travel. At any given time, there's a travel sale. It's usually a season or two ahead. So, so if you're always thinking a season or two ahead, you can save. That being said, if you do want last minute travel, you usually got to look at the tour operators, and a lot of them are up to 20% off. But if you want a flight tomorrow, sometimes the prices can be insane, right? It just depends how flexible you are.
Mm-hmm. And there are websites that you can sign up for.
100%. Those websites, you got to sign up for them, because like people say, it's like, oh, I get too much email. But they always let their newsletter readers, all these websites are really doing, they're just scanning all the airlines, right? They're like, but you're like, who has time to scan hundreds of airlines? Mm-hmm. You don't. You just go to one of those websites like Google Flights that you can search by price, and you just look at a map. It's like, why is this flight $300 to Colombia? So you just click it and then see if it's bookable. It's like, okay, that's a deal. It's done. Yeah. Like, it would take me 5 minutes to find like really good deal. You just wouldn't be able to have specific dates and location. You get one or the other. You just can't have both. Right? Yeah,
so I sign up for YYZ Deals, which is specifically for flying out of Toronto. What are some other websites that you use to watch flights? I
don't like YYZ Deals. No? I think he steals a lot of his deals. Next Departure.
Good to know.
.ca is a better one.
Yeah.
He's actually probably the best. Most people, he posts it first, and then within an hour, everyone else posted it.
I've noticed that, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the way I look at it. But if you're flexible with your travel, even traveling during off season, you don't need to wait for these deals. Deals come to you, right? Even from Toronto, TAP Portugal, which is an airline, you can often find flights to Portugal for less than $500, right? Wow. Which is insane when you think about it. And Portugal is already a cheap country to begin with. So you're like, might as well just go there. So it's just kind of keeping an eye on things. Like you said, sign up for the newsletter so you know what sales are going on or anything else like that.
So usually there's a race to the bottom. You talked earlier about how it's very competitive and everybody's offers are getting better and better.
They are, yeah.
Like, so where does it max out? Like, what's next in credit card rewards?
As long as there's a good offer, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, the joke is like, I don't know if you guys read Reddit. There's like a couple of like different subs there that people talk about, and people were complaining about. It's like, it's the credit card game in Canada over. Everyone's like, devaluing their programs or whatever, or like, you don't get as much anything. And then all of a sudden this year, like I would argue this year's got like more offers than I've ever seen in my life. And it's like, so people are thinking it's like, or, we talked about Be My World Elite. They devalued their points last year. And now it's like, now they got all these wicked offers. So it's like, the competition is tough. And it sounds awful because at the same time, competition is tough because Canadians love debt, and a lot of people aren't using their credit cards responsibly. They're paying interest. It's never free travel for me. Right. Someone else is paying for it, right? Okay. So it sounds awful, but it's if you're responsible for your money, I think you should take advantage of points, right?
In terms of how it works, and
right.
And the truth is, with any reward program, they're only worth it if you are paying your credit card off on time, because the interest that you'd be accruing otherwise would start to outweigh the benefits and the rewards that you're earning.
There's no credit card where if you're paying interest, is it worth it for the rewards? It just doesn't add up. It's like, great, you're earning 2% cash back, but you're paying 19.99% in interest, right? So it's like, that's terrible math.
It's actually an interesting point, because I actually tried to look at the terms and conditions of the interest rates and how they're calculated on a credit card. And it is complicated.
Yeah.
It is complicated. What's interesting to me is that a lot of people actually carry credit card debt, but what's only on their mind is like the rewards, which makes sense. But I feel like low interest credit cards should be on more people's radar. Like everyone should have one as a backup.
I don't think a lot of people even realize they exist or even balance transfer credit cards. But even we're talking about the race to the top, like who's got the best offer. A lot of credit card companies are now implementing rules where it's like once per lifetime sign-up bonuses, which is becoming much more common. Some of them are really complicated, but again, it's like, until then.
Or do we know stats on like how often Canadians in general like?
Do you mean closing one?
Like closing a credit card kind of thing.
I don't think there's any stats, but people open and close credit cards all the time. But as sign-up bonuses are becoming more lucrative, a lot of these companies are spending more money for acquisition, so they have to make adjustments accordingly. So I think that's what the loophole with is. Not a loophole, but it's just restricting sign-up bonuses or figuring out like what's the best practice for them.
And so in the morning when you're getting ready, do you bring all 14 cards with you? Or do you like sort of say,
you have back problems with
I picture like an accordion wall that just
it's like
flips out.
Do you take tap? It's like Seinfeld, where it's like George Costanza's wallet just explodes. Things like that. No, but this is a good point that you bring that up. It's like, depending on where I'm going, it's more for travel. Like certain credit cards I just have because of the sign-up bonus, or there's certain situations where they make sense. So if I'm traveling, I swap my credit cards out. But it's still weird. Like
no foreign fee or.
Well, it's your bank. So I'll have my no Forex card. I'll have my platinum card for the lounge access, and then have my Marriott Bonvoy card because that earns me more points when I'm actually at the hotel. So minimum of 3, right? But right away, 2 of them are Amex cards. One's a Visa, and then even the no Forex card sometimes is questionable. So you gotta have a backup card. So it's weird. Like a minimum of 4 credit cards, and then when I'm home, like you were saying, it's like I shop at Loblaws and No Frills, so I always have my PC MasterCard here. Right. But at the same time, there's so many other places. Like if you go to Costco, they only take MasterCard. So if you've got an Amex or Visa, you got to keep that in mind. It's like, I got to bring a different card, right? Blah blah blah. Or this thing we talked about, before we started recording, is like, what's the biggest mistake I made in the last week or recently? And my joke is like, I paid with the wrong credit card. It's just like, oh man, I was supposed to use this card because it would give me 3 times.
You lost like 13 cents on that purchase.
Yeah, it's but once you get into the game, you actually get really upset.
Yeah, fair enough.
So Barry just kind of did our job for us there by bringing up the money Messups segments, which we usually like to start with, but I was just too excited to get into travel rewards and taking advantage of that to start with that. So my money mess up for the past week was I spent a total of $26.32 on takeout coffee, even though we have really good coffee in the office and I have really good coffee at home. But it's the thing that I do when I'm out and about with my dog. I just like to go and get a coffee, you know? It's an enjoyable thing, but when you see it, like I went through my credit card statement and I see it all add up, you don't think $2 at a time.
Take my kids to the coffee shop and it's like they always want like a croissant or whatever, and
Oh my
every
God,
time like
yeah.
I want to buy a $3 coffee, and now it's like $25.
Bought ice cream another day. It was
Yeah.
like 5. I was like, why did ice cream get so expensive? It's like I gotta up my budget for the summer. Just
It's actually some of my favorite things that you tweet is just like when there's a realization about some money matter that's just
Yeah.
too,
Money
it
realization.
seems like out of this world crazy.
yeah. It's like it's pretty much all I tweet. It's like you just like
So to keep it, I have a money makeup, not a money mess up, but it is actually tied back to credit cards. My wife drove over a screw kind of thing, got it into our tire, so we had a flat tire in the car, and I spent the night sort of looking up how I can get this like jacked up in the car and like just get it plugged or whatever. And oh, wait a minute, and then I'm like, oh, I should get a CAA membership or something for $75, and they'll come and do it for me.
yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, RBC Avion should has something, but it's like, oh, I got to opt in and pay more for it. And then, so my money makeup is that I actually went out and just jacked up the car myself, put on the donut, brought the damaged tire to the shop. They patched it up. I only spent, $30 on it. And
But that's another point. Like if you're smart about your cards, like Hyder was talking about earlier about how he's got the first class visa. So I also bank with TD, and my wife actually got one of their cashback cards because it came with free auto club. So even though we never use that card, it gives us free auto club because it's waived. So it's like I might as well take that. We just have it.
Yeah. I also have like a money makeup, but it's also a credit card. So I had the TD Aeroplan card because I applied for it because my dad told me to, which I think is what most people do. They just
That's true.
listen to what their parents tell them instead of like studying and comparing cards. But I realized like I don't fly Air Canada that much, so I wasn't really making use of it. So I actually called TD and I asked if I could transfer it to the TD first class, which lets me like redeem it on like almost any airline. And they did it with no credit check, and they also gave me the welcome bonus, which was pretty sick.
Yeah.
And I still get to keep my Aeroplan points, but they're gonna expire in a year, so I have to figure that out. But
yeah, that's easy to do, right? You
Yeah.
can always shop through their online shop to keep the points going.
yeah,
Right,
exactly.
yeah.
So yeah, that was a pretty good one. I think people don't do that enough. Like if they're not happy with their card, or if they have a card that they're not
Yeah. Product switches are very normal. A lot of the banks will still give you the welcome bonus, but not all of them. So sometimes you got to ask.
I think there's like all those little things that most people can take. Like the travel hacks, I think they're super useful, but like for most people, like they get scared about that idea, but no one's scared about like calling a bank and like switching their
it's
card or
true.
like calling and asking, hey, can you waive my annual fee? Like
Or
sometimes
hacks-
they will
yeah,
actually.
hacks isn't even like the right word. I think that's what scares off people because people think you're hacking. It's like no, I just read the fine print and understand what's available to me.
Right.
That's true.
What's available to me is it's not like I'm doing something illegal. Everyone else can do it. It's just people just don't know the rules, or
Yeah.
you have to take an extra step to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Oh, well, I think that wraps things up pretty nicely.
yeah.
Thanks for taking the time today, Barry. Appreciate
yeah,
it.
anytime.
Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you want to say?
Yeah, for me, it's like a lot of people think travel is expensive, and I'm not even talking about like credit cards now. It's like it doesn't have to be. You just got to be smart and just do your research. It's like don't think costs should be holding you back from travel. It's an experience that everyone should try to take advantage of in their lifetime. You never know what's going to happen. Don't always say I'll do it later.
And now for my favorite segment, Shower Thoughts with Tyler.
My debit card pays for things with past hours of my life, and my credit card pays with future hours of my life. Huh.
We want to thank Barry once again for joining us. That was an interesting perspective from someone who's obviously very passionate about taking advantage of some of the
Extraordinarily passionate.
yeah, that's one way to say it for sure. Taking advantage of rewards, credit cards. So what do you guys think? How's your perspective changed? Or
My perspective, I think, has changed in two ways. One, I need to shop around for credit cards.
For a better
and
card, yeah.
Probably apply for a better credit card than I have now. And look at the fine print. One of the other credit card that I have is it's a PC card, but it's the base level PC card. And we do our grocery shopping at No Frills, and we do most of our pharmaceutical or beauty care product type stuff is from Shoppers. And so, but why don't we have the higher card? Why did we just take the basic one? And the higher card does 3 times as many points, redeem points from Esso gas stations too. So,
but was it a case of the fee?
they're all no fee. All the
Oh, okay.
PC cards are no fee.
Yeah,
from
so
what
you've got no excuse not
I have
having the
no
better card then.
excuse. Yeah.
You got to go and change that.
Yeah.
I'm myself. I think I mentioned it during the interview with Barry that I'm partial to travel credit cards.
Yeah.
I just find it. I've always found it tough budgeting, saving up for trips. So I find that treating my credit card like a debit card and paying it off in full each month is a good way for me to subsidize some of the cost when I do travel. So for example, I had the gold Amex last year, collected all the points, and then I was able to book 2 tickets to Alberta to go see my sister.
Yeah.
Recently, and that was completely on points, which was kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Barry's definitely a little more hardcore than I am. I'm happy enough just getting a few tens of thousands of points towards a flight.
So, how many cards do you have?
I've got 3.
Okay.
I would only have 1, but there's reasons why. So I've got.
So you gamify it a little bit.
A little bit. So I've got an Air Miles MasterCard from BMO that I opened up when I was in university, and the only reason I keep that one open is because it's my longest credit history piece, which obviously the credit bureaus look at your credit history as part of determining your credit score. So I keep that open. It's a no-fee card just for that reason. And then last year, I got the Scotiabank Amex, and I was going to close it this year, but then I called them and requested that they waive the fee.
Right, yeah.
So I kept it for another year to see if I still wanted it. And then this year, as mentioned, the BMO World Elite had a really good sign-up bonus. They waived the fee.
Yes.
I really like the lounge access for when I travel. Once you do that, you will never go back. So I've got that card.
Maybe I shouldn't get lounge access for that.
And then next year I'll be calling BMO and saying, hey guys, waive the fee or I'm closing this card down.
Yeah.
I actually think you touched on 2 in terms of basic credit card stuff, I think you touched on 2 important things. One is never cancel your first credit card, especially if it's a no-fee card. That's why when you're if you're a student trying to get your first card, you want to stay away from the no fees because after 5 years, it's not going to be that good, but you don't want to cancel it, so it costs nothing to carry.
It's important. That's a big point.
Yeah, that is a big point. And the other thing is calling your bank and asking to waive the fee. And sometimes calling your bank and trying to ask for a small deal or it works out. You don't have to pay $150 this year for your card. And not enough people do it.
Right.
And I've seen studies online where it's upwards of 50% of the time they'll give it to you.
Unreal.
Don't quote me on that stat, but
you're our stat guy.
Yeah.
We feel
guy,
count on you here.
it was a US
You're no good
study.
to us if your stats
It was a
aren't
US
true.
study. I'll get you a stat, but so I think more people should definitely do that.
I think it's safe to say that all of us are pretty diligent with paying off our credit cards at this current stage in our respective lives, but I know, at least for me, that wasn't always the case. What are some of the big credit lessons that you've learned the hard way?
I think the fact that I would carry one credit card and use only one credit card exclusively, I think it's just easier. People just kind of think it's too complicated to carry 2, but something as simple as carrying 2 and getting more rewards on certain purchases and then using another that offers bonus. For example, at one point I had the Tangerine card. I didn't have the Tangerine card, and I would charge everything to a TD card, and that gives me a flat return. By juggling multiple cards, I actually can walk away with a couple of $100 extra, and I try to do it by having one card that's annual fee and one that's not, so I don't feel the burden of 2 annual fees. But having more than one card, even if you travel abroad and you have a card that has no foreign transaction fees, that'll save you when you're abroad and you can use your credit card.
For sure.
Even if you don't use it as regularly, it's just good to have a different credit card that offers different perks instead of putting all your eggs in one basket.
I was kind of thinking this morning on my way in about the hassle that it might be to sort of change my credit, because right now everything's with your fingerprint and pay for this on Uber Eats or get your Uber payment via. But to set it all up in advance, so it's okay, this is my Uber credit card and this is this credit card, and it goes there. I mean, if it's automatic, then it's easier. And the way that Barry sort of sets himself up in the morning and says, I'm going grocery shopping and I need to fill the car up with gas, and then I'm going to the movies or something, and so these are the 3 different cards I'm going to use. It's pretty impressive.
It happened in university. I think this is a common experience for a lot of people. I just treated it like an endless flow of cash. Never looked at my balance, just charged it.
Visa doesn't mind.
Exactly. And over time it maxed out, and I was a student, so I wasn't making much money. and just carried a balance and was paying off the minimum balance for months at a time, which over a long period of time adds up, and you're essentially just setting money on fire.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to see laid out how much I've paid in interest over that period.
I was going to ask, what do you think you paid? Yeah, but okay.
No interest in thinking about that. But obviously, I've gotten a lot better at that, and I haven't paid any interest on a credit card in years now, I'd say.
That's awesome. Yeah. You know what's interesting? They actually, on every credit card statement, they will actually say how long it takes for you to pay off your balance if you only pay the minimum balance. And it'll actually be something along the lines of like 10 years for a balance that you could clear off in one year.
And a lot of people are facing that reality. We've kind of been talking about how to take advantage of credit cards to work for your benefit in terms of rewards, but I don't think that's for everybody. Using some of the strategies that we use and that Barry suggested we use, because it does take a lot of self-discipline to pay it off. So what are your thoughts on that? What sort of people should avoid trying to take advantage of rewards programs?
I think if you're not there's a bit of me that sort of says if you're not a detailed person, then just get, like, how many credit cards are you supposed to have is sort of how I'll spin that question back, is because if you're not a detailed person, or you're like, oh, is that a paperless billing, and you forget to log in and you're not logged into your regular banking, and then all of a sudden you get a late notice kind of thing. So stick with one card. Well, I'm going to turn to Hyder, the credit card guru here.
Oh, yeah. You guys don't even know that. Hyder is our credit card guru, along with being our fact snapper guy. Although I don't think he's given us any facts except for the one.
Pretty disappointed.
I checked the stats. So that earlier one about asking for your annual fee waiver, according to a website in the US, creditcards.com, 70% of people who asked to have their annual fee waived, I believe they got it. 56% who asked to get a lower interest rate got it.
So ask and ye shall receive sometimes.
Yes.
Up when I applied for a new credit card, a little part of me died, then it just shot right back up.
You can also earn rewards on debit cards. You can also take advantage of there's apps out there like I know Mylo does it. There's a web like Simple does it, where they basically round up your purchases up to the nearest dollar, like invest your spare change, and over the course of a year that can add up to like $360 extra. So if you're looking primarily for rewards but you're scared of like carrying a balance, like if you juggle a credit card and a debit card and like find other ways to double dip and get rewards, like.
Do you guys have an example of like a really stupid purchase that you put on credit that you wouldn't have done if you had to use physical money?
Yeah, I promise you, if someone just ditches credit cards and uses cash all the time, like you will probably like walk away with more money at the end of the day. Like obviously credit card they have their benefits, they're convenient, your rewards, but it's easier to impulse buy with them. So like
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about?
I would say people do not compare credit cards across banks enough.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
They just kind of like I have my checking account and my savings account with Bank X. If I switch my bank, if I get a credit card with a new bank, I'm gonna have to like switch over my credit card. It's like too much work, and it just blows my mind because like everyone nowadays like. They're used to comparing flights. No one's like loyal to one airline. No one is loyal. Like brand loyalty is kind of somewhat going out of the way. But people are still kind of like scared of that, and like they shouldn't be, because I promise you, your bank does not offer the best credit cards for you. Do not get stuck with your bank. Look around. Like,
just do a quick search online for what you want.
Ratehub.ca.
That's a good thing to bring up.
Because even with checking accounts, like my wife will probably kill me that I bring this up, but she had like an account where she had a checking account. She was paying $15 a month, and I was losing my mind. I was like, "Why are you paying this?" I got her to switch. Now she pays nothing, and she also got a $200 bonus. And it's like it doesn't affect her day to day. She's like, "Oh, I just have another cart to swipe."
I just picture Hyder and Mrs. Hyder in their kitchen. Like, he's cooking dinner and she comes home with her bill. And
she does the cooking.
And she's like, "Why am I charged so much?" And Hyder just flipping the skillet over.
I lost I'm like, "You're scared of cards that have annual fees. You're paying more in annual fees on a checking account."
$200.
Yeah.
So
that's another conversation for another time. But you can, if you hold a balance in that, usually in that checking account, they'll waive the fee, which makes it sort of worthwhile if you have a mortgage, they'll waive the fee.
Yeah,
there's always
free checking accounts.
Yeah, they will reward loyalty, which is
basically
kind of
compare products across banks.
Yeah.
Choose better. All right, so that's it for our conversation on credit cards and credit card rewards. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. And now for the fine print. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views and opinions expressed by Ratehub employees are those of the employees and do not necessarily reflect the views of Ratehub Inc. or any of its sponsors or officials. This is for general use. We're not certified or licensed advisors. Yeah, we just don't want to get sued.